This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And the gang is back. We are back now, 2 weeks in a row. It was Dave and I first, and then Ricky and Dave. So thank you guys for holding the fort down last week. And I'm glad we can come together and
to finish this
and reveal our top 30 teams in the NBA from worst to first.
Which there's also 3 of us here. This is also the 3rd time we have started the podcast. Let's hope this is the last time we start the podcast.
3 is the magical number.
3 is the magic number, so let's try to do this. Last week, Ricky went 3 for 3 in reading the rankings. I'm going to try
30 through 1, Sean. 30 through 1.
I'm going to try to do my best going 30 through 1.
I know that they didn't see it or hear it because that recording is off in the deleted graveyard. Do we count? Are we going to count it? Are we going to let him?
I'll give him a chance to redeem himself.
Okay.
It's finished product.
I messed up with my highlighting. Let's see how I did this time, guys. If you're listening to Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much. You're going to witness this historic moment in MVP history if you're watching on YouTube. We're about to disappear as the 30th team in the NBA. To Bridget Johnson's dismay and Ricky Widmer's is the Chicago Bulls. At 29, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. Weird seeing a playoff team this low. At 28, we have the Atlanta Hawks, who have been decimated with Paul Millsap leaving. With 27, we have the New York Knicks. Somehow they are not the worst team in the NBA. At 26, we have the Brooklyn Nets. They're coming up. They're an up-and-comer there. 25, we have the Orlando Magic, a team with 11 starters on their team, but none of them quality starters. At number 24, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, another underrated team I feel that we will talk about in this segment. At 23, we have the Phoenix Suns. 22, we have the Indiana Pacers. And rounding out this segment, at 21, we have the Charlotte Hornets. I feel like I did perfect there, right?
You did pretty close.
There we go. Boom. So let's jump in. The Bucks, 24. I want to talk about this because they have one of the best players in the NBA, at least versatility-wise. And I know Dave's going to mention the number.
I
never mentioned it. You know this? Ricky always mentions it. You always mention it.
Well, you mentioned it once. You brought it up once, and then we always
I don't even think we were recording when I mentioned it.
But the thing that Dave always brings up is the fact that with Giannis on the court, the Bucks are worse statistically with plus minus. So looking at this, I mean, I feel like the Bucks are totally underrated. Should be top 20 to top 15 at least.
Well, here's the thing, and we kind of hit on this a little bit last year. The Wayback Machine, if you ever want to listen to those, fantastic listen, by the way.
Highly recommend the 2015 to 2016 Finals podcast. Those are some of our best content.
But superstar-driven league, and that's exactly what the NBA is one player can make such a level of impact. You mentioned earlier the Grizzlies. They're the second worst team according to these positional rankings. And yet they were a playoff team last year. That just shows you how hard a couple of fantastic players can carry a team. And Giannis is amazing. No denying that. He's been something special. He's continued to grow every single year in the league. The question here is the team around him, will they continue to grow around him? Because player development is something that they're known for, but the situational coaching is where they really shoot themselves in the foot. And that's always been kind of the balancing act for that Bucks team.
And at least with the Bucks, Ricky, we see obviously Giannis is near the top, but you look at outside of that, Delly in six-man was near the bottom. He was in the bottom third there. Jason Kidd in the bottom third of coaches. Greg Monroe in the bottom third of coaches. We look at Thon Maker, centers. Thon Maker in the bottom third of power forwards as well because of Jabari Parker's injury. You look at shooting guard. We don't see we see Chris Middleton. He's the guy that also up near the top. And then point guard, obviously they're struggling as well there. So do you think with Malcolm Brogdon there, do you think this is more of they have a really deep bench and then the players around them really fit the system and that's why we see them making the playoffs and maybe they don't have they have the star which helps them?
2 things with the Bucks. First off, these rankings would be they would probably be in the next segment if we were talking about Jabari Parker being healthy. And if he qualified for the Zach LaVine rule, like if he was coming back before the All-Star break, he would have been in these rankings. I believe it would be the power forward rankings would be a little bit different. And that was a ranking where they had, if I'm looking right, 5. They had 5 points from that, which they probably would have gotten. He probably might have been top 10, top 15 in the power forwards maybe. Would have gave him about 15 more points overall, which would have boosted them into the next bracket. But I like what Dave mentioned with the superstar thing, because he mentioned it before we started recording in LeBron James, where you mentioned like, oh, LeBron should get like 45 points, not the 30.
Yeah.
Because of what he brings to that Cav team. And I look at it like, you look at the Grizzlies. They've got their 2, I'm going to say, superstars for their team in Conley and Gasol, guys that they can lean on. Look at the Bulls last year, like Jimmy Butler. They had D Wade. They had guys, Rajon Rondo, that they could lean on.
Yep.
Look at the Magic and the Nets. This year the Nets are different because they have D'Angelo Russell, and people think that him and Allen Crabbe are going to add things. But I use the Magic as the prime example because you always bring up they have this many
11 starters.
How many stars do they have, though?
0.
How many superstars and stars do they have? And that's why they're constantly this low in the rankings.
Yeah, and we haven't seen Magic and those teams have stars in a while. Last one for the Magic would probably be Dwight Howard when we're looking at this. But I think it's something where, obviously you also look at the Bucks and they're in a terrible conference. I mean, Eastern Conference is pretty, weak. And if you have a guy who can take over the game like Giannis can, you can win, 40 games alone with Giannis. And then the fact they have role players who fit Giannis's skill set as well.
And that's why with these rankings, I just want to say, like, these aren't indicative of like, though these bottom teams aren't going to make the playoffs. These are just
God, no.
This is we looked at the complete roster. We looked at even complete to say 6-man and coach. And this is where we see the teams with looking at the full picture.
And this doesn't rank chemistry as well.
Yeah.
This doesn't rank how well these players play together. We're ranking them solely on how they would do one-on-one against each other. Or on paper as well. So it's something where we're not taking into the fact that Giannis does so much for the Bucks. They also have Tony Snell, who we didn't even get in the rankings, who was fantastic for the Bucks last year.
Absolutely overachieved.
So, I mean, looking at this, which teams out of this lower half that we have ranked will make the playoffs next year? I think the Bucks will probably be a solid lock, right?
The Bucks are a solid lock. I think the Hornets have an outside shot as well. And then it comes back to, like, I've bet against the Grizzlies year after year, and I'm going to stick to it. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year.
I think it's Bucks,
the West
Hornets,
is
and
just
Grizzlies.
so loaded.
Bucks, Hornets, and Grizzlies.
Hornets, and then the Grizzlies are that team that they're on the fence because of how loaded the West can be.
Yeah.
And there are teams in the West, like David mentioned, he always picks against them. But there are teams in the West where you're like, this team wasn't in the playoffs last year, but they could make the jump into the playoffs this year. The Nuggets, the Pelicans.
But the Grizzlies will dig out some D-leaguer who gives them quality minutes, good contributions, and they'll be able to drag themselves in again.
And honestly, the thing with the Grizzlies is the fact that they have Fizdale, and if they didn't have Fizdale, they'd easily be the worst team in the NBA, at least with our rankings. Because, yes, they had Connolly who saved them, and Gasol who saved them, but other than that, they had only one other player who was above a 25th player, and that was at 6, where the 6-man was...
or no, it was 6-man.
Yeah, 6-man.
Right.
Who was, I think, at 24. So, I mean, outside of Fizdale, Gasol, and Connolly, that's a really great trio, and that's going to help them win games. But outside of that, it's really, they don't have that star power or proven star power because Ben McLemore, yes, he's had the ability before, was drafted high, but he was a guy that really hasn't shown his abilities. And maybe going to a team like Memphis that has a lot of chemistry and a lot of, teamwork and relies on teamwork.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he kind of develops in that system because I think on the Kings, he's just kind of left out to dry, and he did not get the help he needed.
Out of this grouping here, the Hornets, Pacers, Suns, Bucks, Magic, Nets, Knicks, Hawks, and Grizzlies, and Bulls, which team will be the worst, at least out of this? Like, truly, when we look at the records, we look back at this, are any of these teams
if the Bulls aren't going to end up with the worst?
I don't think so.
Who's going to have the worst record this year?
I know we're in the East, but
and the thing that I look at is, I mean, the Bulls last year, I know they had Jimmy Butler, and I'm going to say that I know that they had D Wade. I know in these rankings we technically
he's still here at the moment.
But he's going to get bought out at some point in this season. He's going to be a Cleveland Cavalier, let's be honest. However, I still think like maybe 25 wins, which isn't far from the last. The team that I look at is the Suns of, yes, they are young. Yes, you expect a younger team to get better. Yes, they added Josh Jackson, a top 5 pick in the draft. But technically looking at record, they were the second worst team in the league last year. The Nets were the worst team with 20. So I look at the Suns and I go, depending on how Earl Watson can coach this team and how much development they make, I still think it's either them or the Bulls, though. That's what you got to think of.
You think the Bulls are definitely in competition for the worst team in the league?
I think maybe like if at best 30 wins this year, because I don't think D Wade is going to be on this team. Like that's at best. I think 25 is what we can realistically shoot for.
I'm already halfway penciling in Michael Porter Jr. as my pick for the Bulls.
So you agree that they're going to be the worst team in the NBA?
Yeah. I'm a strong proponent of worst team in the NBA. We just don't have talent.
Is there any hope?
Is developed.
Hope for what?
There is, because
to not be the worst team in the NBA.
Well, if we're the absolute worst, here's what I think with the Bulls. It's if we're because it's weird because how Reinsdorf is. Let's try to shoot for the playoffs. That's why they go ahead and bring in D. Wade last year. If we get to a point where it's like we're mathematically eliminated, I could just see the Bulls going, nope, tank mode. And just trying to get that number 1 pick. Just throw in, which would be unfair to Hoiberg, because as me and Dave talked about last week with Hoiberg, he's never had like the most complete team out there where it's like, yeah, you can win with this team, Fred.
The upside for the Bulls is clearly in Levine coming off the injury and what Markkanen can bring, because he looked good in the EuroLeague, not EuroLeague, the I forget what the title of the tournament was for European basketball. That was just recently. I'm blanking on the title of it.
I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was the EuroLeague.
Whatever it is, he was fantastic. He looked really good. Actually gave a little more physicality than I had seen out of him at Arizona, and that's what he needed. He was very soft on the inside. When he got forced to play there, he struggled. So if you can get a combo of Zach LaVine and Markkanen looking good out there, then you could have some hope for the future. I still think there's a lot to look down on this team about, but yeah, you've got a couple bright spots that could be good for the future.
Euro basketball is what you're talking about, FIBA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did see Laurie play fairly well over there.
My question is though the Knicks, because I know that obviously we weren't going to talk about the news this week because we had these rankings, but you mentioned us before the podcast. Melo came out with the no trade list, and the Cavs are on there. If he gets traded, could then you see the Knicks being the worst team in the NBA?
I think the Knicks are going to be the worst team.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
They're the only one I can look at.
I look at the Bulls, and the Bulls are terrible, and I think they are terrible.
I just have no hope right now. I wore my Bulls red, but I have no hope.
But I look at the Knicks, and outside of Carmelo, who I'm not even that high on, I mean, yes, Carmelo.
You don't believe in Tim Hardaway Jr.?
No.
THJ, you don't believe in him?
Jacking up shots for days.
They don't have a point guard, and I don't think Frank is going to show enough development to be a decent point guard behind him.
That's fair.
I mean, they don't have a point guard.
Ron Baker, GOAT.
Yeah, I want Ron Baker running my offense, Dave. I mean, come on.
He didn't look terrible.
He looked decent off ball because he's a decent shooter. But I mean, Ron Baker, I don't want him controlling my offense.
The combination of Ron Baker, Be Easy. Like, this is a team I'm really looking forward to watching.
Okay, they might have some fun TNT games if they even make it to TNT.
If he gets healthy.
I mean, Hernan Gomez, Frank, Porzingis, they have some fun players. Melo's fun when he's hot.
Thing. Like, this is a team that I would pay to watch sometimes.
But led by Hornacek, with
if you don't get thrown out of the arena.
As led by Hornacek and with as much drama as around that team, I think the Knicks can easily be the worst team in the NBA this year. Yes, they have Melo.
Do you think Melo has to leave them to be the worst team? Oh, you think even if he's on the roster throughout the whole year?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Melo's decent. I think Melo is but I don't think Melo wants to play. I don't think Melo wants to play in New York. That's why I'm saying he's decent. If Melo's on the Rockets or Cleveland, he's jumping back up in those small forward lists. But he doesn't want to play in New York. He doesn't want to be there. He has no incentive to play there besides the money he's getting paid. So there's no reason for him to try. There's no reason for him to go out and be Melo that he can be. And even when he has all the chips on his shoulder, it's not like him and Porzingis play well off of each other. I mean, it's not like those two are a dynamic duo. No. So it's not like he has a ton of help. So he's pretty much willing his team on his back with when Porzingis is out on the floor with him, because Porzingis really doesn't pair with him, and he doesn't have a player to pair well with Porzingis. So if Melo leaves, how is Porzingis going to score, and how is Porzingis really going to create for himself in that team? I don't see the Knicks being that good. At least the Bulls, yes, they have mediocre players, but they at least have, fill the positions. Chris Dunn might be a crappy point guard, but hey, he's at least a point guard, and he has some ability.
Arguable.
He has some ability to play defense, and he has some ability to pass the ball. I mean, Chris Dunn, he was bad last year, but doesn't mean he's going to be bad this year.
Because you're saying you got more faith in like a Chris Dunn than you do a Frank, who it's like we just drafted him, and we've got to develop him into what we want.
Well, yeah, Chris Dunn's 45 years old already.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's something where, Zach LaVine showed a lot of promise when he's healthy. He could be a decent player. Chris Dunn can be an okay player. If Laurie's able to find a shot in a couple games, that can, add 18 points maybe to their lead, and that gives them some points there. If Bobby wants to play, there you go. If Denzel wants to play, Zipser looked okay. I mean, they have players who might be able to step up and score some points for them and win some games, where the Knicks, I'm worried that Carmelo wants to play every night. And, this isn't Hoodie Melo. This isn't him, going up against the best of the best in pickup games. Melo doesn't really want to play for New York. He doesn't want to play in the Garden, so why would he play for them during the regular season and score points and help this team get wins?
I want to ask you about one more team now, because you're talking about the Knicks. It's another team that's right below them in the Hawks. All they had,
Hawks can easily be the worst team.
All they had was Schroeder was the highest, and then besides that, like Budenholzer was top 10 coach for us. But besides that, the only person ranked out of the bottom third in the rankings was the guy that you were trash talking on the 6th man, and Marco Bellinelli.
Well, Bellinelli is bad. And Bellinelli as your 6th man, like, okay, if he's like, Bellinelli is not going to take this team to 20 wins.
He's a role player.
Like, the Atlanta Hawks are a bad team. Dennis Schroeder, I don't think, is going to have the season you need to win 25 to 30.
He's not going to be a guy that puts the team on his back, dude.
No, he's not going to be
10s.
He's not going to be a guy that's getting 20 and 10s. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be getting maybe 18 and 6 for Schroeder, but even then I don't think it's enough for him. And then you look at the help around him, I don't know where he's going to get those 6 assists from either. So, I mean, maybe
Marco Bellinelli.
Maybe Marco Bellinelli is his only help, but I don't think Bellinelli's going to be able to put up the numbers to get 6 assists a game. I don't see the like, honestly, it's just, I don't want to say a team from the East because the East is that bad.
I know, it's such a wild card.
And the thing is that I would probably put the Knicks, Bulls, and Atlanta in no particular order to be the worst team in the East. And that's not even taking the Brooklyn Nets, who have been the worst team in the East consistently. And I think that's more credit to the Knicks, to the Nets than anything, because they've been really rebuilding this team and really looking better and better each year. So it's something where I have no confidence in saying Brooklyn's going to be the worst team in the NBA because I don't think they have a chance to be.
Well, Brooklyn's like the Cleveland Browns of the NBA, where it's very easy to say, yep, they're the worst team, and just completely, what are the Nets going to do? And like, even one of our comments that we got on last week's video with coaches is like, the one person, I can't remember the name, was like, hey, you know what, let's see what Atkinson can do with a roster now, with actual guys like I mentioned, D'Angelo Russell, and I'm going to throw Alan Crabb out there because I think
Jeremy Lin,
he's going to be able to produce in Brooklyn now that I know that you smile because you're not on the side of the Alan Crabb.
I'm smiling for a different reason.
Oh, okay. But I kind of feel like when we're talking worst team in the NBA, I think because of youth, I still think for some reason it's going to be Phoenix.
Sorry, I'm on Reddit, and r/babysball had a poll where they viewed the most hated teams. Most hated team in Texas is the Texas Rangers, and the most hated team in Wyoming are the Chicago White Sox. I don't know why the White Sox are getting the hate in Wyoming. Anyways, going back to basketball for the reason why people come to the Fast Break podcast.
I honestly think you got to give the Nets credit though. Like they start out like 6 feet below the ground. Like, when this franchise had to turn over, they were so deep in the hole.
I mean, Billy King fucked them.
And then they did the, are you talking even before the KG trade?
No,
where they traded all that
Billy
away
King,
too,
that was all Billy King.
Put them in the hole.
Yeah, and so, like, they've come so far above ground. It's taken a lot of time. Actually, not terrible amount of time, but a decent amount of time, a lot of hard work, some crafty trades, some fun contract bullshit, which you got to give them credit for the, like, oh, that's cool. We're going to offer your player a max. Go ahead and match that for us, won't you?
Here you go, Miami. Max Tyler Johnson out.
Like, come on. Otto Porter? Porter, Max Porter, right?
Yeah, there you go. I'm looking at these rankings, though, before we wrap this up. Let's kind of put these teams into to some kind of bucket here. Sure. So which teams are god-awful out here? Which ones can we agree that are god-awful?
God-awful?
Bulls, Hawks, Knicks. I agree. I think
I'm going to say Nets and Suns on top. Like, Nets I'm putting there until you prove me wrong.
Okay. Would you agree with that?
I would not. I think the Nets.
Prove me wrong.
So the 3 things that we're going to do is god awful, mediocre, and decent.
I think the Nets could win. I'm sorry. I think the Suns could win 30 games. I think 30 games is fine.
They're young. Devin Booker can pop off.
Yeah.
We saw him go for 70 last year. But I mean, other than that, they still lost the game.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that the Suns probably are god awful. I would say that the Magic are god awful.
Wow, the Magic.
The Knicks are god awful.
Wouldn't be a Fast Break podcast.
The Magic
Bulls are god
team,
awful.
I just don't know whether to put them in. Like, I don't think they're god awful, but like mediocre. I'm like, are they really?
Like I said,
29 wins.
Their best
year.
Player is a third option. Nikola
but
Vucevic.
They still got 29. I would say the Magic are mediocre. Mediocre.
You know what? I wouldn't even give them god awful. I wouldn't give them that credit. I'd say they're mediocre.
Like god awful
because they have 11 starters.
Are we playing is this the year for Alfred Payton again?
Is this the one year he's going to have a really good April? Again? Is this the one year that Nikola Vucevic is going to...
That's Nikola Mirotic that has the good April.
No, Alfred Payton's pretty much the same way.
Hey, I mean, their boy... I'm blanking on his name now. shooter, Fournier.
Yeah,
he's going to score 18 points a game. Doesn't matter if he doesn't do it efficiently or not. I would put them as mediocre because most of their players are mediocre.
You don't need to be a great team to win regular season basketball games.
And
they have 11 mediocre starters.
And they have a coach where it's like,
who's also mediocre.
He's not the worst coach in the league, right?
Yeah.
He went to the Eastern Conference Finals way back ago.
All right.
We didn't even mention the Pacers.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just...
Are they god-awful?
No.
Okay, so
I think they're going to get by.
The Suns are god-awful.
They're not going to make the playoffs.
No.
But
Suns are god-awful. I'll agree with Ricky and put the Nets as god-awful, even though I think they're very close to being mediocre.
prove me wrong, and then I'll put you mediocre.
Knicks are god-awful. Hawks are god-awful. Bulls are god-awful. Mediocre teams, we agreed on the Magic. Are we throwing the Pacers in mediocre?
I would.
I would.
Okay, and then decent teams, we'd say Hornets, Bucks,
And Grizzlies.
Grizzlies. Yep. There we go. So, I mean, again, these rankings aren't really true to the Grizzlies are the 29th
It's not going to be
worst
the
team.
regular season record lineup, you know?
This
It'd
is
be
matching.
funny if it was that we predicted it like 1 through 30, how they would
That'd be
line
some
up.
crazy
How did we do last year? Worst team last year was the Nets.
The Nets.
And then the Pelicans, and the 76ers, and the Suns. Honestly, those last four weren't that bad.
We didn't, and
Because the Suns had the fourth pick, right?
And let's be honest,
did.
like let's look at it. The Bucks we had at 23 yet again, and they made the playoffs.
Grizzlies were at 21.
Grizzlies were those were the only two to make
And
the playoffs.
who did the Grizzlies lose? Zebo. So then losing Zebo knocked them down.
Fizdale's a lot higher. Fizdale was in the bottom third.
That was because he didn't do anything last year.
But now he did.
And
we took that for data, Sean.
Yeah, and then whoever I think we had Chandler Parsons pretty high too.
Yeah. Well, he's not even in the rankings this year, is he? Because we had him in.
No, he was.
This year?
Yeah, he was a power forward, I think.
Okay.
small forward.
Small forward.
Small forward.
Who was our? Yeah, okay. But the thing he was injured and he wasn't good enough. And then I think they had Tony Allen as their shooting guard last year, which put them at 9 because Tony Allen was decent defensively. So, I mean, the Grizzlies have always been low. Bucks were low last year. I mean, and the Hornets were low as well last year, but the Hornets didn't even make the playoffs. So, again, these aren't saying these teams are going to be the worst in the NBA in this exact order. And we'll actually show those probably in the playoff predictions next year, or this next week when we do that. But anything else we want to add on to these 30 through 21 teams? I mean, it's pretty boilerplate when we get to these lower teams.
I hope the Bulls aren't the worst team, but I know I'm not gonna expect a lot this year. It just pains me to say.
I got one wild card question. I know this is gonna be a little teaser for next week's video, but do you think the Hornets have what it takes to not only get to the playoffs, but to actually contend in these to make it to the second round?
The Hornets?
Yeah.
No.
No chance.
Well,
wait.
Yes to your first question. No
they can
to
make the
your second.
playoffs, but there's zero chance to get to the
I
second
think
round.
at best they'll be a 7 or 8 seed, lose to either the Cavs or Boston.
I would not have them beating the Wizards, Boston, or the Cavs. If they somehow get a 5th seed and take on Toronto, maybe. But I also wouldn't take them over Milwaukee.
I think at the best 7th, 8th, and then in my mind it's Boston, Cleveland are 1, 2.
Make the playoffs, yes, and then get to the second round, no.
Probably not.
No.
Okay,
And
cool.
this is coming from a huge Kemba fan.
Yeah.
What would you say? Yes.
I'm on the fence. I
why is
think
that?
it's entirely matchup dependent. I think if you believe
I
they
like
can get to
Dwight.
the 6 or the 5, then there's a chance. If they're stuck at 7, 8, there's zero chance.
Who do you like them matching up against?
I like them against the Raptors.
And why is that?
I think the Raptors at this point, if you have another year where Lowry or DeRozan gets hurt, team's exposed again. I think Serge is going to fall off a little bit more this year, and I think they never know how to use their center. I'm sorry, like it's just super annoying when you have a big who is solid, but your entire game plan revolves around your guard play and your forwards. It's just like he's an ignored and often underutilized player.
And that's
the
why
Hornets. I think that Dwight coming in.
I think that could help
be
them
able
a
to
lot.
take them out in that matchup.
I would even like them against the not to be like for sure they would win, but I think they could take the Wizards in the first round only because of the down low matchup. It would become how much does Dwight add to the matchup, and can the guards limit the alpha dogs in
I don't think so.
Washington?
I think that Gortat is physical enough to take Dwight out of his element, and then I think John Wall and Bradley Beal is too much.
Well,
even though
they're the
MKG
two
is
ones.
really good defensively.
Could you imagine a series where it's just it becomes Wall or Beal? We'll pick one of them, and it's them and Kemba mano-y-mano.
That'd be fun.
I think we'd all love to see that.
But I would take John Wall over Kemba, which is the reason why Kemba Walker is lower than John Wall in our rankings.